Christmas pageant ever. It continues. When we got home, my father wanted to hear all about it. Well, Mother said, just suppose you had never heard the Christmas story, and you didn't know anything about it, and then somebody told you it. What would you think? Think about that for a minute. What would you think? If you've never heard the Christmas story, and then somebody told you about it. Because you all have heard it since you were little. My father looked at her for a minute or two and then said, well, I guess I would think it's pretty disgraceful that they couldn't find any room for a pregnant woman except in a stable. I was amazed. It didn't seem natural for my father to be on the side of the herdmans, but then it didn't seem natural for the herdmans to be on the right side of anything. It made more sense for them to be on Herod's side. Exactly, Mother said. It was perfectly disgraceful. I never thought about it much. You hear all about it being nice, warm, stable with the animals breathing and the sweet-smelling hay. But that doesn't change the fact that they put Mary in a barn. Now let me tell you. She told my father all about the rehearsal, and when she was through, she said, it's clear to me that deep down, those children have some good instincts after all. My father said he couldn't exactly agree. According to you, he said, their chief instinct was to burn Herod alive? No, their chief instinct was to get Mary and the baby out of the barn. But even so, it was Herod they wanted to do away with, and not Mary or Joseph. They picked the right villain. That must mean something. Maybe so, my father looked up from his newspaper. Is that what finally happened to Herod? What did happen to Herod anyway? None of us knew. I had never thought much about Herod. He was just a name, somebody in the Bible, Herod the king. But the herdmans went and looked him up. The very next day, Imogen grabbed me at recess. How do you get a book out of the library, she asked. You have to get a card. How do you get a card? You have to sign your name. She looked at me for a minute with her eyes all squinched up. Do you have to sign your own name? I thought Imogen probably wanted to go get adult books, which is out of the basement where they were kept, but I knew nobody would let her do that. There's this big chain across the stairs to the basement, and Miss Grabner, the librarian, can hear it rattle no matter where she's in the library, so you don't stand a chance of getting down there. Sure, you can sign your own name. And some libraries, like the bigger libraries, have like a children's section and an adult section separated. Just like when you guys were younger here, like you knew where the picture books were that you were supposed to go to, and you were not supposed to go wandering through the middle school section of books just because kids tend to move things and mess it up. Sure, you have to sign your own name, I said. They don't know who has the book, then they have to know who has the books. I didn't see what difference it made whether she signed the card with her own name or signed the card Queen Elizabeth. Miss Grabner was still not going to let Imogen Herdman take any books out of the public library. I guess she couldn't stop them from using the library though, because that is where they found out all about Herod. They went in that afternoon, all 6 of them, and told Miss Grabner that they wanted library cards. Usually, Gabby, when anybody told Miss Grabner they wanted a library card, she had this big happy smile on her face and said, good, we want all of our boys and girls to have library cards. She didn't say that with the Herdmans though. She just asked why they wanted library cards. We want to read about Jesus, Imogen said. No, not Jesus, Ralph said. That king who was out to get Jesus, Herod. Later on, Miss Grabner told my mother that she had been a librarian for 38 years and loved every minute of it because every day brought something new and different. But now she said I might as well retire. When Imogen Herdman came in and said she wanted to read about Jesus, I knew I'd heard everything there was to hear. At next rehearsal, Mother started again to separate everyone to angels and shepherds and guests at the end, but she didn't get very far. The Herdmans wanted to rewrite the whole pageant and hang Herod for a finish. They couldn't stand that he died in his bed of old age, and that's really what happened. It wasn't just Jesus that he was after, Ralph told us. He killed all kinds of people. He even killed his own wife, Leroy said. And nothing happened to him, Imogen grumbled. Well, he died, didn't he? Somebody said maybe he died of a horrible death. What did he die of? Ralph shrugged. It didn't say. Flu, I guess. They were so mad about it, I thought they might quit the pageant. But they didn't. Not then or ever. And all the people who kept hoping that the Herdmans would get bored and leave were out of luck. They showed up at rehearsals right on time and did just what they were supposed to do. But they were still the Herdmans, and there was at least one person who didn't forget that for a minute. One day I saw Alice Wendlekin writing something down on a little pad of paper and trying to hide it with her other hand. It's none of your business, she said. It wasn't any of my business, but it wasn't any of Alice's either. What she wrote was, Gladys Herdman drinks communion wine. It's not wine, I said, it's grape juice. Remember, this is a different religion. We're not talking consecrated wine. I don't care what it is, she drinks it. I've seen her 3 times with her mouth all purple. They steal crayons from the Sunday school cupboards too. And if you shake the happy birthday bank in the kindergarten room, it doesn't make a sound. They stole all the pennies out of that. I was amazed at Alice. I would never think to go and shake the happy birthday bank. Every time you go to the girls' room, she said the whole air is blue. Imogen Herdman is sitting there in the Mary costume smoking cigars. Alice wrote down all these things and how many times each thing happened. I don't know why, unless it made her feel good to see in black and white just how awful they were. Since none of the Herdmans had ever gone to church or Sunday school or read the Bible or anything, they didn't know how things were supposed to be. Imogen, for instance, didn't know that Mary was supposed to be acted out in a certain way. Sort of quiet and dreamy and out of this world. The way Imogen did it, Mary was a lot like Miss Santero at the pizza parlor. Mrs. Santero is a big fat lady with a little skinny husband and 9 children. She yells and hollers and hugs her kids and slaps them. That's how Imogen's Mary was, loud and bossy. Get away from the baby, she yelled at Ralph, who was Joseph. And she made the wise men keep their distance. The wise men want to honor the Christ child, Mother explained for the 10th time. They don't mean to harm him, for heaven's sake. But the wise men didn't know how things were supposed to be either. And nobody blamed Imogen for shoving them out of the way. You got the feeling that these wise men were going to hustle back to Herod as fast as they could and squeal on the baby out of pure meanness. They thought about it too, Lauren. What if we didn't go home another way, Leroy demanded. Leroy was Melchior. What if we went back to the king and told on the baby where he was and all? He would murder Jesus, Ralph said. Old Herod would murder him. He would not. That was Imogen with a fire in her eyes, and since the Herdmans fought one another as fast as they fought everyone else, Mother had to step in and settle everybody down. Thought about it later, and I decided if Herod, a king, set out to murder Jesus, a carpenter's baby son, he would surely find a way to do it. So when Leroy said, what if we went back and told on the baby, it gave me something to think about. No Jesus. Ever. Think about that for real for a minute, because if the kings had gone back the way that Herod asked them to, he would have killed the baby. Luckily they didn't. I don't know whether anybody else got this flash. Alice, when looking for one, did not. I don't think it's very nice to talk about baby Jesus being murdered, she said, stitching her lips together and looking sour. There was one more thing to write down on her pad of paper, and one more thing to tell her mother about the Herdmans. Besides the fact that they swore and smoked and stole things. I think she kept hoping that they would do one great big sinful thing and her mother would say, well, that's that, and get on the telephone and have them thrown out. Be sure to tell your mother I can step right in and be married if I have to, she told me as we stood in the back of the angel choir. And if I'm married, we can get the Perkins baby for Jesus. But Mrs. Perkins won't let Imogen Herdman get her hands on him. The Perkins baby would have made a terrific Jesus, and Alice knew that. The way things stood, we didn't have any baby at all, and this really bothered my mother, because you couldn't very well have the best Christmas pageant in history with the chief character missing. We'd had lots of babies offered in the beginning, all the way from Eugene Sloper, who was so new he was still red, up to Junior Quadhill, who was almost 4. His mother said he would scrunch up. When all the mothers found out about the Herdmans, they withdrew their babies. Mother had called up everybody she knew trying to scratch up a baby. The closest she came was Bernice Watrous, who kept foster babies all the time. I've got a darling little boy right now, Bernice told Mother. He's 3 years old, and so good I hardly know he's in the house. He'd be wonderful. But Bernice's baby got adopted 2 weeks before Christmas, and Bernice said she didn't think she could borrow him back right away like that. So that was that. Listen, Imogen said, I'll get us a baby. How would you do that, Mother said. I'll steal one, Imogen said. There's always 2 or 3 babies in carriages outside of the A&P supermarket. That's like Publix. Oh, Imogen, don't be ridiculous, Mother said. You can't just walk off with somebody's baby. You know. I doubt if Imogen did know that. She walked off with everything else. Well, we just won't worry about it a baby, Mother said. We'll use a baby doll. It'll be better anyway. Imogen looked pleased. A doll can't bite you, she pointed out. Which just went to prove that the Herdmans started off mean. Right from the cradle. Pet?